They came out with a new logo, and it was so heavily criticized, they killed it and changed it back.
Company logos are everywhere, blending into our daily lives so seamlessly that we rarely stop to think about them. But behind these familiar symbols lie fascinating, unexpected, and sometimes even unsettling stories. From their hidden meanings to surprising origins, the logos of the world's biggest brands hold more secrets than you might imagine. What are these secrets, you ask? Join us as we uncover the 20 incredible stories behind the most famous logos of global brands. Number 20. Apple. Back in the mid-70s, when Apple was just getting started, their first logo looked nothing like the one we know today. It was designed by one of the company's co-founders, Ronald Wayne, and showed Isaac Newton sitting under an apple tree, which was meant to represent knowledge and discovery. But this detailed drawing didn't last long. A year later, Rob Janoff created the simple apple with a bite taken out of it. The bite wasn't random. It helped make sure people didn't mistake it for a cherry or tomato. Plus, it played on the word byte, which is a common computer term. At first, the apple had rainbow stripes, a nod to Apple's focus on creativity and its computer's ability to display color.
Color was the big deal with the new Apple computer. It was the only computer where you could make images in color.
One of the biggest myths about Apple's logo is that it was inspired by Alan Turing, the man who helped shape modern computing. He was said to have died after eating an apple poisoned with cyanide. A lot of people believe this, but Janoff has repeatedly said the logo had nothing to do with Turing's story. It was simply designed to be clear and recognizable.
And he had this great quote, "You couldn't dream of a more appropriate logo."
Another controversy popped up in 2011 when Apple took legal action against a small cafe in Germany called Apfelkind for using an apple in its logo. Many thought Apple was being too aggressive in defending its brand. Over the years, Apple has changed the look of its logo, but kept its famous shape. By the late 90s, when the iMac was released, Apple ditched the rainbow colors and went with a sleek, single-color design to match its modern products. Since then, the logo has appeared in different styles, including glass, chrome, and flat black, adapting to the company's design trends. No matter how it evolves, the bitten apple remains one of the most famous logos in the world. Number 19. MGM. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, better known as MGM, has one of the most famous logos in movie history. It features a roaring lion inside a film reel with the Latin phrase Ars Gratia Artis, which means art for art's sake. This logo first appeared in the mid-20s and was designed by Howard Dietz, an advertising executive. He got the idea from Columbia University, where he studied, since their sports teams were called the Lions. The first lion in the logo, named Slats, didn't roar, but he just looked around. Over time, different lions were used, and the most famous one, Leo, officially became the roaring lion in the late 50s when synchronized sound was added. Over the years, the logo has sparked some controversy, especially about how the lions were treated. Animal rights groups have questioned whether the lions were kept in good conditions and if it was right to use real animals in films.
Society's expectation of animal welfare, animal care and control has evolved.
There was also a popular but untrue rumor that one of the lions attacked and killed its trainer after filming. However, there is no proof that this ever happened. In more recent times, some critics have said the logo feels outdated, arguing that it represents old-school Hollywood and doesn't fit today's film industry. MGM has made a few small updates to the logo, mostly changing the text and refining the film reel's look. The biggest change happened in the early 20s when the real lion was replaced with a CGI version. Number 18. Amazon. When Amazon first launched in the mid-90s, its logo was pretty basic. It was just the company's name in all capital letters with a curved line underneath, meant to look like a river, specifically the Amazon River. A few years later, in the late 90s, they changed the font to something sleeker, but the biggest change came at the start of the 2000s when the now famous Smile logo was introduced. Designed by Turner Duckworth, The yellow arrow stretches from the letter A to Z, symbolizing that Amazon sells everything you could possibly need. The slight curve of the arrow also looks like a smile, reinforcing the company's friendly and customer-focused image. Over the years, the logo has stirred up some backlash. In the early 2020s, Amazon updated its app icon by adding a blue strip of tape above the smile. But many people quickly noticed that it looked oddly similar to Adolf Hitler's mustache, which sparked a lot of backlash. Amazon quietly changed the design, rounding out the tape to avoid further criticism. The company has also faced criticism for its business practices, with some arguing that the smile feels ironic, given complaints about worker mistreatment and accusations of monopolistic behavior. Even with these controversies, Amazon has stuck with its branding since the early 2000s. The company has made a few minor tweaks, like adjusting the font and colors, but the smile and arrow design has remained the same. Number 15. Ferrari. Car companies are no strangers to iconic logos, and Ferrari is one of the most famous names in the industry. Its cars sell for jaw-dropping amounts, with the most expensive one ever sold, a Ferrari from the early 1960s, going for nearly $40 million. But beyond the luxury and high prices, Ferrari's black prancing horse logo carries a deep history. The symbol originally belonged to a pilot from World War I, Francesco Baracca, who painted the horse on his plane.
His parents asked Enzo Ferrari to use the horse in the Ferrari logo for good luck.
After he passed away in battle, his mother suggested to Enzo Ferrari that he use the emblem on his race cars, believing it would bring good luck. Ferrari took the advice and added a bright yellow background to represent his hometown of Modena. Since then, the prancing horse has become one of the most famous logos in the world. And with Ferrari now valued at over $12 billion, it seems the lucky charm worked. Ferrari takes its brand very seriously and does not hesitate to go after anyone using a similar horse logo. A major legal case happened in the early 2000s when Ferrari sued a German tuning company for tweaking its prancing horse design. The company has also been called out for banning certain celebrities from buying its cars after they made custom modifications that Ferrari didn't approve of. This strict control over its image has sparked some debate, but it has also helped maintain the exclusivity of the brand. Number 17. Virgin. Richard Branson, the head of Virgin, has always done things differently, and even the name of his company reflects that. He came up with Virgin in the early 70s because he was completely new to business, as it was his very first company. He started out working from a church where he published a student newspaper, and he wanted everyone around him to know he had no experience. But with a fortune worth more than $5 billion today, it's safe to say he's no beginner anymore.
Sir Richard Branson has built a multi-billion-dollar empire, a career spanning over 5 decades.
Virgin's first proper logo appeared in the early 70s. It had a casual handwritten style word inside a speech bubble, capturing the brand's fun and rebellious personality. In the late 70s, a British artist named Ray Kite redesigned it into the well-known Virgin signature logo, which looked like someone had quickly scribbled it down. This new style matched the company's bold and adventurous spirit, making it feel more personal and exciting.
If you're in a position where you can speak out about things, it's very important.
One of the biggest controversies surrounding the Virgin logo happened in the late 2000s when Virgin Atlantic decided to change the look of its airplanes. The well-known Flying Lady artwork, which was inspired by World War II pin-up girls, was replaced with more diverse images. Some people thought this was a great move toward inclusivity, while others felt it was unnecessary political correctness. On top of that, as Virgin has expanded into many different industries from airlines to space travel, there have been occasional debates about how its branding is used. Some critics believe the focus on the logo sometimes takes attention away from the actual services the company provides. Number 16. Android. Back in the late 2000s, Google designer Irina Block came up with the well-known green robot that represents Android, which people now call Bug Droid. She got the idea from restroom signs because she wanted something super simple and easy for everyone to recognize. She also took inspiration from classic sci-fi robots, which is why the character has a round head, little antennas, and a boxy body. Instead of keeping the design locked away, Google decided to make it open source, meaning developers could tweak and use it however they wanted. This helped the logo spread quickly and become instantly recognizable.
Google will require future Android phones to show a "Powered by Android" logo when the phone boots up.
Even though the Android logo hasn't been the subject of huge controversies, some people have pointed out that it looks a lot like certain robots from old sci-fi movies and shows. No one has ever taken legal action, but the similarities have sparked some discussion. The biggest backlash happened in the late 2000s when Google updated the branding and shrunk Bug Droid down to just a floating head. A lot of people felt that removing the full body took away part of what made the character so unique and memorable. Since it first appeared, the Android logo has gone through a few updates. From the late 2000s to the mid-2000s, it was paired with a futuristic-looking font. Then, in the mid-2000s, Google switched to a flatter, more modern version of the robot and introduced a friendlier-looking font. The biggest change happened in the late 2000s when Google adjusted Bug Droid's color to a more high-contrast shade to improve visibility and redesigned the Android wordmark using a rounder, more Google-like font. Separating the robot's head from its body was meant to make the branding more adaptable, but plenty of users still prefer the original full-bodied design. Number 14. Gillette. The Gillette logo, representing one of the biggest razor brands in the world, has changed over time to highlight what the company stands for, which is sharpness and precision. The business was started in the early 1900s by King C. Gillette, who changed the shaving game with his idea of a disposable safety razor.
But yeah, if you're not familiar with safety razors, this is something that was not invented by King C. Gillette.
At first, the company's logo was plain and simple, but as Gillette became more successful, the design improved. The most well-known version, introduced in the 1970s, features a unique slant in the letters G and I, making it look like a razor has sliced through them. This small detail is a clever way of showing what the brand is all about. In 2019, Gillette launched an ad campaign that stirred up a lot of debate. The ad encouraged men to be the best they can be and spoke out against toxic masculinity. While some people supported the message, others felt the company was pushing social issues too far and turning away its loyal male customers. The backlash led to many people boycotting Gillette products, and sales took a hit. Still, Procter & Gamble, the company that owns Gillette, defended the ad and stood by its message. Number 13. Coca-Cola. The Coca-Cola logo is one of the most famous in the world, dating back to the late 1800s when a pharmacist named John Stith Pemberton first created the drink. His bookkeeper, Frank Mason Robinson, was the one who designed the original logo, picking a fancy, flowing script style called Spencerian. He thought the two C letters would make the brand look good in ads and help it stand out. By the 1950s, Coca-Cola had fully embraced its red and white colors, making the brand feel lively, exciting, and fun. Even though people everywhere love Coca-Cola, its logo has sparked some controversy over the years. One long-running myth claims the design secretly hints at the fact that the original recipe included coca leaf extracts, which contain cocaine. While the company removed cocaine from its formula by the late 1920s, the rumor never fully disappeared. In the mid-1980s, Coca-Cola made one of its biggest mistakes by introducing New Coke with a new formula and a different logo.
But the phenomenal success of Diet Coke and similar soft drinks has helped cut 2.5 points off Coke's market share in just 4 years.
People were so upset that the company had to bring back the original version in just 3 months. A more recent controversy happened in the early 2010s when Coca-Cola ran an ad campaign in Russia with a special version of its logo. The ad accidentally showed the wrong map of the country, which made both Russian and Ukrainian consumers angry. Number 12. BMW. The BMW logo has been around since the early 1900s, back when the company was first called Rapp Motorenwerke. In 1917, the company changed its name to Bayerische Motorenwerke, which means Bavarian Motor Works. When designing the logo, they kept some parts from the old Rap Motorenwerke emblem, but added Bavaria's blue and white colors to honor their roots. A lot of people believe the logo shows a spinning airplane propeller, since BMW used to make aircraft engines. This idea became even more popular after a 1920s ad showed the logo inside a turning propeller. But BMW has explained that the design was never meant to represent aviation, but was always just about Bavaria. Most of the controversy around the BMW logo comes from this misunderstanding about the propeller. The company itself accidentally encouraged this idea in its marketing for years. Another big debate happened in 2020 when BMW introduced a new, simpler version of the logo.
BMW is redesigning its logo, sort of. The car company unveiled a new version of the recognizable circle logo this week.
They removed the black outer ring and made it more transparent and flat. Some people thought this new look made the logo feel less high-end and powerful. Others pointed out that the see-through design might not work well on cars, since it could blend into different paint colors and lose its identity. BMW defended the update, saying it was a modern take that fit better with the digital world and showed the company's focus on the future of mobility. Number 11. IKEA. The IKEA logo came to life in the early 1950s, the same year the company put out its very first furniture catalog. The man behind IKEA, Ingvar Kamprad, came up with the name by using his initials, I and K.
At 17, he formed IKEA, named after his own initials and the area where he was born.
He then added the first letters of the farm where he grew up, Elmtarid, and the nearby village, Agunarid. That's how IKEA was born. In the early days, the logo was just plain black and white text, nothing fancy. But by the 1970s, IKEA introduced the bright blue and yellow colors that people recognize today. These colors weren't random, but they were inspired by the Swedish flag, a way to show the company's strong Swedish roots and commitment to simple, affordable, and functional design. One of the biggest logo controversies happened in 2009 when IKEA decided to switch its font from the well-known Futura to Verdana. The goal was to make the text easier to read on screens, but the decision didn't sit well with a lot of people. Designers and customers felt that Verdana looked too plain and didn't have the unique style of the original font. The backlash was so intense that people started calling it Verdanagate. Many thought the change made IKEA's branding feel less special, but the company stuck with its decision, saying it was important to have a font that worked well both online and in print. IKEA has also faced some criticism for tweaking its branding in different countries, like when it adjusted its signage in Saudi Arabia to follow local cultural rules. Number 10. Mercedes-Benz. The Mercedes-Benz logo has been around since the early 20th century, back when the company was still called Daimler Motorengesellschaft, or DMG for short. The famous three-pointed star first appeared in the early 1900s, inspired by something company founder Gottlieb Daimler had done decades earlier. In the 1870s, Daimler sent a postcard to his wife, marking their home with a three-pointed star and telling her that one day this symbol would represent his company's success on land, sea, and air. His dream made sense because at the time, Daimler wanted to create not just cars but also engines for ships and planes. When DMG merged with Benz and CA in the mid-1920s, they kept the star but added a laurel wreath around it. That combination became the Mercedes-Benz logo people still recognize today. Over the years, the Mercedes-Benz logo hasn't stirred up much controversy, but a few design changes have received mixed reactions. In the late 2000s, the company decided to simplify its traditional three-dimensional chrome logo into a flat, single-color version for digital use. The change was small, but some fans thought it took away from the brand's high-end feel. Then, in 2020, Mercedes made a temporary tweak to the logo by increasing the space between the 3 points of the star. It was meant to support social distancing during the COVID-19 pandemic. While some thought it was a creative way to spread awareness, others felt it was just a marketing stunt. Despite a few updates, the Mercedes-Benz logo has kept its main look for more than 100 years. Number 9. Jaguar. The Jaguar logo made its first appearance in the mid-1940s when a British car company, originally called the Swallow Sidecar Company, decided to change its name. Before then, the company had used a simple logo with the letters SS, but because of its connection to a group in Nazi Germany during World War II, they needed a fresh start. They picked the name Jaguar because it brought to mind speed, power, and elegance. To match the name, they created a logo with a leaping jaguar, representing agility, performance, and grace, which perfectly suited their luxury vehicles. One of the biggest nitpicks over Jaguar's logo happened in 2012, when the company, now owned by Tata Motors from India, decided to make a big change.
After the controversy of its rebrand, Jaguar has now finally revealed the car.
For a long time, Jaguar cars had a chrome Jaguar hood ornament, but new safety rules forced them to remove it from many models. Some loyal customers were disappointed, saying the hood ornament was a key part of the brand's identity.
Look at this beautiful Groot's Jaguar hood emblem replacement.
But that wasn't the only controversy. In late 2024, Jaguar launched a new advertising campaign that upset a lot of people. The ad was just 30 seconds long and featured models wearing bright, stylish outfits with the phrase "copy nothing" on the screen, but it didn't show a single car. The idea was to reinvent Jaguar's brand image, but critics thought they were abandoning their history. Even Elon Musk made fun of the ad, calling it too woke. The backlash was huge, with people complaining that a car company should actually show cars in its ads. Jaguar's managing director, Rawdon Glover, explained that they were trying to attract younger, wealthier buyers and set the stage for their switch to electric cars by the mid-2020s. However, the campaign also received criticism over the negative responses directed at the models in the commercial. To steer the conversation back to its vehicles, Jaguar later unveiled a concept for a new electric car called Type 00, reminding people of the company's real focus. Number 8. Audi. Audi's logo, with its 4 interlocking rings, was first created in the early 1930s when 4 German car companies, Audi, DKW, Horch, and Wanderer, decided to join forces to form Auto Union. Each ring in the logo represents one of these companies, showing their unity. The founder of Audi, August Horch, had originally started a company under his own name, but after a legal dispute, he lost the rights to it. So he chose the name Audi, which is the Latin translation of Horch, meaning listen. Over the years, the logo has stayed mostly the same, only going through small updates, keeping Audi's reputation for top-notch engineering and innovation strong. Audi's logo made headlines in the early 2021 when the company took legal action against the Chinese carmaker NIO. Audi argued that NIO's model names, ES6 and ES8, sounded too much like Audi's own S6 and S8, which could confuse customers.
Okay. Another fun fact. Did you know that Audi means to listen?
The European courts agreed with Audi, leading to restrictions on NIO's branding in some markets. But that wasn't the only time Audi got into trouble. In 2020, the company released an ad featuring a little girl eating a banana while standing in front of a bright red Audi sports car. People thought the image had inappropriate undertones, and the backlash was so strong that Audi quickly pulled the ad and issued a public apology. Number 7. Procter & Gamble. Back in the mid-19th century, Procter & Gamble came up with its first logo, which was just a simple star. Later on, it turned into a more detailed design that showed a bearded man's face inside a crescent moon, surrounded by 13 stars. The idea for this design came from the markings that shipping companies used back then, since Procter & Gamble needed a symbol people could recognize easily, especially in a time when a lot of customers couldn't read. As the company expanded and became a global brand, this logo became closely linked to its identity.
P&G's powerful brands have been losing market share for a decade.
Then, in the 1980s, things took a strange turn. A wild conspiracy theory started spreading, claiming that the logo had hidden satanic symbols. Some people believed that the crescent moon and 13 stars were linked to devil worship, and others even thought they could spot secret messages in the design if they looked at it a certain way. These rumors spread quickly, especially among religious groups, and soon people were calling for a boycott of Procter & Gamble products.
All of this has helped smaller brands, which can change their products faster and easier than a giant like P&G.
The company kept denying any connection to these claims and even took legal action against those spreading the false stories. The situation got even more intense when their competitor, Amway, was accused of fueling the rumors to damage Procter & Gamble's reputation. This led to a major lawsuit, which Procter & Gamble eventually won in the early 2000s. Because of all the negative attention, the company decided to drop the bearded man and crescent moon from the logo in the late 1980s and replaced it with a simpler, text-only design. But in 2010, Procter & Gamble quietly brought back a modernized version of the crescent moon, making it more subtle and minimalistic. This was part of a bigger rebranding effort meant to focus on innovation and rebuilding consumer trust while moving away from the controversies of the past. Number 6. Pepsi. Pepsi, the longtime competitor of Coca-Cola, has a logo history that goes way back to the late 19th century. When the brand first came out in the early 1890s, it was actually called Brad's Drink. A few years later, in the late 1890s, the name was changed to Pepsi-Cola, and the logo was just a fancy, swirly red script. Over time, the brand kept tweaking its look, but one of the biggest changes happened in the middle of the 20th century. That was when Pepsi introduced a bottle cap design in red, white, and blue. Since this was right after the Second World War, the colors helped the brand connect with American patriotism. This tricolor style eventually evolved into the well-known globe symbol people recognize today. Pepsi has had its fair share of logo-related controversies. One of the biggest ones happened in the late 2000s when the company spent a whopping $1 million on a new design. A lot of people thought it looked too much like the campaign logo used by Barack Obama during his presidential run. The redesign featured a tilted globe with a curved white stripe in the middle, and some believed Pepsi was trying to make a political statement. Things got even weirder when an internal document leaked online, claiming the new logo was inspired by deep, complex ideas like the golden ratio and magnetic fields. Most people dismissed it as corporate nonsense. Then in 2017, Pepsi got into even more trouble, though this time it wasn't about the logo itself. They released a commercial featuring Kendall Jenner that was meant to reference social justice movements, but it completely backfired. The ad was slammed for being tone-deaf, and the backlash hurt Pepsi's overall brand image. Despite all this, Pepsi kept updating its look. In 2020, the brand introduced another redesign, bringing back bold typography that reminded people of its style from the 1980s, while still keeping things fresh and modern. Number 5. Gap. Gap's logo has been around since the late 1960s when the company first started as a store mainly selling denim. At the beginning, the logo was pretty simple, featuring just the brand's name written in bold letters. Then, in the mid-1980s, Gap introduced what would become its most famous look, a blue square with the word Gap written in white serif letters. This design became an instant classic and stayed the same for more than 20 years, making it a key part of the brand's identity in the fashion world. In 2011, when the company tried to change its logo, they switched the well-known blue box design to something totally different, which was a lowercase Gap in Helvetica font, with a small blue gradient square in the top right corner. Customers and design experts hated it, saying it looked plain, boring, and like a rushed attempt to seem modern. The backlash was so intense that in less than 1 week, Gap gave in and brought back the original logo. This made it one of the shortest rebrands ever, and the whole situation showed just how much people get attached to familiar logos. Since then, Gap has mostly stuck with its classic blue square logo. However, the brand has played around with different versions for special occasions, including a black and white minimalist design and retro-inspired styles for anniversary collections. Number 4. Walmart. Walmart's logo has been around since the early 1960s when Sam Walton opened the first store in a small town in Arkansas. Back then, the logo was pretty simple. It just had the store's name written in a classic serif font with a hyphen in the middle, reading Walmart. Over time, as the company became a giant in the retail world, it kept tweaking the logo to match its growing influence. By the early 1990s, Walmart went for a cleaner look, using bold sans serif letters and swapping the hyphen for a star. Then, in the late 2000s, the company introduced the logo we see today, with Walmart written in softer lowercase letters and a bright yellow spark symbol meant to represent creativity, fresh ideas, and a friendly vibe. Walmart has faced several controversies over its logo, mainly because of how aggressively it tries to protect its brand.
So Walmart wanted their logo to reflect that. Just one problem though, the new logo looks exactly like the old one.
In the mid-2000s, the company tried to trademark the famous yellow smiley face that had long been linked to its branding, but this led to a legal fight with a French company that already owned rights to a similar design. The battle dragged on for nearly 10 years, but in the end, Walmart lost. The company's rebrand in the late 2000s also raised eyebrows. Some people thought it was just an attempt to make Walmart seem more approachable, especially since the company had faced criticism for poor working conditions and environmental concerns. Others felt that the lowercase letters and the spark symbol made the brand look less strong and more ordinary. Number 3. Thor Steinar. Thor Steinar's logo has been stirring up controversy ever since the brand started in the early 2000s in Germany. At first, the logo mixed different runic symbols, including one linked to the Norse god Tyr and another that had connections to Nazi Germany. Even though the company claimed to be just an outdoor and sportswear brand, its designs quickly became popular among far-right extremist groups in Germany and other parts of Europe. Because of this, the German government and several organizations started keeping a close eye on the brand. Things got more serious in the mid-2000s when German authorities decided to ban Thor Steinar's original logo, saying it looked too much like Nazi symbols, which are illegal in the country. In response, the brand came up with a new logo that had a Nordic-inspired look with crossed axes. But by that time, the brand was already heavily linked to far-right groups, so it kept facing bans in different parts of Germany. People protested outside the brand's stores, and some football stadiums and public places even stopped letting customers wear Thor Steinar clothing. Thor Steinar has tried to move away from its connections to far-right groups, especially after a company from Dubai took over. Number 2. Tropicana. Tropicana's logo and packaging have changed quite a bit since the brand first started in the late 1940s, but the biggest flop happened in the late 2000s when they tried to give it a modern twist. The original logo had an orange with a straw stuck in it, a simple image that made people think of fresh juice straight from the fruit. This design had been around for decades, making Tropicana one of the top orange juice brands in the United States. However, trouble started in early 2009 when Tropicana revealed its new packaging. They got rid of the well-known orange and straw image and replaced it with a plain glass of juice. They also swapped the bold logo for a clean, modern font. The redesign, which reportedly cost around $35 million, was supposed to give the brand a fresh and stylish look. But instead, customers were frustrated.
Orange juice have tanked since the company's changed the shape of its bottles, and this one, folks, is true.
Calling the new design dull and hard to recognize. Sales dropped by 20% in just 2 months, leading to losses of about $30 million because people didn't realize it was the same product. The backlash was intense, with tons of complaints flooding customer service lines, emails, and social media. Because of the overwhelming criticism, Tropicana announced in early 2009 that it would return to the original logo and packaging. Number 1. Starbucks. Starbucks has changed its logo quite a few times since it was founded in the early 1970s, but it has always had a connection to the history of the coffee trade. The original design showed a detailed brown mermaid, or siren, with 2 tails, inspired by an old 16th century Norse woodcut. The siren was meant to capture the magic of coffee and its ties to the sea, since the company was named after the first mate in Moby Dick. The design was pretty bold, as the siren's bare chest was visible, which was common in old mermaid artwork but stood out on coffee cups. As Starbucks grew bigger in the 1980s and 90s, some people thought the siren's appearance wasn't appropriate for a brand going mainstream. So in the late 1980s, the company tweaked the design, covering her chest with flowing hair and switching the color scheme to the now famous green and white. This change gave Starbucks a cleaner, more professional image. However, in the late 2000s, Starbucks briefly brought back the original brown logo for a nostalgic campaign, sparking fresh complaints. Some conservative and religious groups felt the siren's partial nudity was still too much for a coffee brand.
Big changes at Starbucks start today, among them some free refills for anyone drinking in the stores.
In the year 2012, Starbucks made another big change, removing the brand name completely and keeping only the siren's face and crown. This move caused some controversy, as people worried that without the words Starbucks Coffee, the logo might not be as easily recognizable. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.